Well, as I was watching and previewing this video, I resonated with that main character's heart, because when I find a great gift or a great thing to do for someone, I just want to bust out and tell it. A couple years ago, I planned to take Betty Lou to Canada over Christmas, and it was going to be a surprise. And I set up things, and she had no idea this was happening, because we had originally planned to go down to Arizona to see my folks. But her dad was not doing well. He was getting ill and not getting any stronger. And as I was thinking about it, it makes more sense for us to go up there to see them. So I had all this planned out, contacted her folks up there, and we had everything worked through. But she didn't know anything. But I really tried as hard as I could to blow it. There were several instances where I could just hardly contain myself. But finally, right before we left, I was able to say, we're not going to Arizona, we're going to Canada. And she just was just filled with excitement about being able to see her folks at that Christmas. But there were so many times I wanted to let it, because it was great. It was a great thing, and she was going to love it, and I wanted to see her excitement about it. And that's kind of the story that's in our video today, that as she thinks about what God has done and the work He has done, that He's revealed what He's wanted to do, and there's pictures of it throughout the Scriptures, even in the Old Testament. As the gal said in the video, there's most agree that there's about 300 prophecies about Jesus coming to this world, and each one is a promise of hope, what God would do one day for His people. Promises like in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. And it says, therefore, the Lord Himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel. I'm sure as Isaiah received that message and was conveying it to the people, what is this about? How is this going to happen in our lives? The virgin shall conceive? What is that all about? Another is Isaiah 9, 6, and 7, and this is kind of the theme verse that's in our devotionals. If you've not picked up an Advent devotional, there are several that are on the table in the back there. It starts today, so you can pick it up as we go here. But the main passage that they're using here is from Isaiah chapter 9, and it says this in verses 6 and 7. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Again, you just wonder what the people, as they would have heard these words spoken and then read in their synagogues and in their gatherings, what were they thinking this was referring to? And then yet one more of the many, Isaiah chapter 53, verse 6. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, but the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. What was he talking about? Can you imagine their wonder? What is this going to look like? And yet Jesus comes some 700 years later. This prophecy of hope from the heart of God came as the Virgin Mary gave birth to her firstborn son. They named him Jesus, or Yeshua, because he was to save the people from their sins. Yeshua means he saves. And that's why Jesus was born. He was our Savior who could rescue us from sins and the things that would separate us from our God. Again, she mentioned the video that early on in the Bible, in chapter 3 of the first book in Genesis, we have the fall of mankind, and sin enters to the world, and there's this separation, and God has a plan to restore us to Him. And that plan is revealed in so many ways throughout the Old Testament and given pictures through the sacrificial system, but finds its culmination in Jesus of Nazareth, the Son of God. So what I want to do today is, what we'll be doing over the next several weeks is picking up some of the themes of Advent. And today the theme is hope, and hope in the mighty God. And there's 4 things I want us to find some hope out of. There's hope for freedom, and there's hope for help, and there's hope of forgiveness, and there's hope in temptation. And the main passage I want to get this from comes out of the book of Hebrews. Now, Hebrews, if you've never read it before, it's just a magnificent book. It brings into picture all the Old Testament sacrifices and systems, the priest and all those things, and explains how all these things lead and guide toward who Jesus is and what he was doing. It starts off in the first chapter talking about how Jesus is even better than angels and how God has revealed himself through him. And continues on with this theme of Jesus, this one who is better than everything. But the foundation of everything before that leads to this picture of who Jesus is. So passage I want to concentrate out of today is in Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 to 17. And the entire passage goes this way, and we'll look at each of these verses in a little bit more detail on each of those themes. But since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. For surely it is not angels he helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and then he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Oh, lots of stuff in there. And the first one I want to focus on is this hope for freedom. In verses 14 and 15, the author has been writing about how Jesus became human. And in becoming human, he can identify with people. That's one of the main things that happens there. And he knows, he walks, he lives, he breathes, he grows up. And as Luke says, he grows in favor with God and with man. But he does this so that as he's born as a baby, he grew up and then died, so that in his death, he might break the power of the fear of death. And so this idea of this hope of freedom, in particular, freedom from death. Now the fear of death is pervasive for us, isn't it? Whether it's our kids or our friends or parents. But the thing about death is, it's not an if thing, is it? It's always a when thing. I had a part in about 12 different memorial or funeral services this year for people who died. Some I knew well, some were members of this church. One was family last month or earlier this month. Others I knew less well and were coming up here because of their connection to the islands, and just met them as we were preparing for that. But all of them had a sense of sorrow in this. There was a loss that they were having to face. And some were filled with joy and memories, but the bottom line is there was a loss there, and it was hard and difficult. We face death. We try to brush it off or ignore it sometimes. But that's one of the things that's for all of us. It's a hard fact. And Jesus came to bring the message that death, well, it's not fearful for those who come to know him and received his gift of life, because there's life with the Lord in the days to come. He frees us from the fear because of what we can anticipate, of being with him in his presence. One of the joyful things in spending time with families that are facing these, for those who in particular who know the Lord and anticipating being connected again with him, there is an anticipation of what is next. There's that great story of the gal who's talking with her pastor, and in the process of talking about her funeral and how things are going to be, says, here's what I want. I want you to put a fork in my hand. He's like, well, why do you want to do that? Because every time we come to some great feast or meal, they say, save your fork because the best is yet to come. There's going to be dessert. And so I want the fork in my hand because the best is yet to come. There is a hope for freedom from this life and the things that we face. Death is swallowed up in victory, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians. That's the message of Jesus and what we can have hope with even in this world. The second thing is a hope for help. Again, in verse 16, it says, "For surely it is not angels he helps, but Abraham's descendants." We spent a lot of this fall talking about Abraham and thinking through what his descendants were going to look like. We spent several weeks on him and the promise that God had given him and making those connections, as Paul does, particularly in the book of Romans, about how we are at the end of this. We are part of his descendants, not genetically, but because of our faith in God and what he was doing. Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, it says in Genesis 15. And we who have faith are, along with him, the benefits of the promises that he received. And here it says in verse 16 again, "For surely is not angel he helps, but Abraham's descendants." This word "helps" is a powerful word with some vivid imagery. It's a word about rescue. That's the picture that's coming out here. It's what my dad did for my 2-year-old son, Michael. We were down at their place in Phoenix, and Dad was reading the newspaper, and Stephanie and Michael were out cruising around and walking by the swimming pool that is in their backyard, and all of a sudden, plunge, Michael falls in at 2 years old and does not know how to swim yet. And my daughter Stephanie said, "Grandpa!" And Grandpa didn't miss a beat, but runs over and jumps into the water. This was Christmas time, so the water was about 50 degrees. So it was, but without a thought, jumps in and rescues. He helps Michael out. And that's a little bit of picture of what Jesus has done for us. He helps us. Again, this thing we call sin in our lives that separates us from God it's a deal that needs to be faced and dealt with. Sin is not some small thing. Paul writes that the wages of sin is death, but then adds, "But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord." He helps us and rescues us. And that is the hope that we have for the help that Jesus brings to us. Well, the third thing is the hope for forgiveness. And too often in life we feel like failures and we feel like I don't really deserve to be forgiven. The things that I've done, the ways I've acted, we often will focus on our failures and that we're destined to fail even God with our lives. And we get caught up in living in the past and not the things that are going on. And it's difficult to live your life looking backwards. If you're driving a car and you just drive the entire way through the rearview mirror, well, it's not going to really go well for you as you head forward because you're not focusing on what's ahead, but just looking at what's behind. And one of the things that's described in here is that forgiveness is available and accessible to us. Verse 17. Of Hebrews 2. "For this reason, he had to be made like his brothers and sisters in every way, in order that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people." Jesus is born, and he's 100% human, and he does that so he can be a merciful and faithful high priest. Again, the author here is highlighting some of the things that have been described throughout the Old Testament and the ways that the priests were to serve the people. And Jesus comes as a human, like a priest, and he is 100% human, and he gets us. That's one of the phrases the gal in the video said. Jesus gets us, but he gets us in the difficulties that we face and the help that we need. The word here at the end, atonement, is a word that essentially means to stop being angry, to avert the anger. Romans chapter 1:18 says the wrath of God is being revealed against the wickedness of mankind. There is an anger at sin because God who created us knows the best things for us. And when we turn away from that, we not only harm ourselves, but we harm others, as well as our relationship with him. And Jesus brings forgiveness as he comes to this life. You know how it's pretty difficult to forgive someone that when you don't understand them, you don't understand what's going on in their life. So Jesus became one of us to understand and will give us the hope to be forgiven. The fourth thing is the hope in temptation. Life is filled with temptations. We see that early on in chapter 2 of Genesis. They were given a couple options, many options of food to eat and fruit to take from trees, but God says there's one, do not take from that tree. And in Genesis 3, the serpent comes along and says, did God really say you can't eat of any of this stuff? And already changing and deceiving a little bit there. He's like, no, just, and Eve responds like, no, it's just this one tree. We can't eat from that one, and we can't even touch it, but, if we do, we'll certainly die, and continues on his temptation. You're not going to die, and deceives her, and deceives her into disobedience, to take the one rule that God had, and to say, nope, I'm gonna choose for myself what is best. Well, Jesus comes and understands what it means to go through that. Verse 18 says this, because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. In that verse, it says that he was suffered when he was tempted. And this life was not a cakewalk for Jesus. There were difficult things that he faced. As fully human and fully God, the kind of disrespect he often received would have been wrong. And there would have been every temptation that we go through, Jesus faced, and yet he faced it and did not sin. But that fills him with compassion that comes from someone who has gone through that themselves. Jesus knows us, and Jesus gets us. And so he gives us hope. Hope in freedom, and hope in having help, and hope in forgiveness, and even facing the temptations in our lives. And one of the things we need to hold on to is hold on to the hope that comes. Later on in Hebrews, in chapter 10, he writes this, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. We hold on to this hope because God knows us and loves us and cares for us. He's got our backs. The story of a family, and it's the story of Alice and Timmy and their family. And a few months ago, in the story, this particular pastor was going with a family, and the dad, Ted, well, he was told by his boss that the only way they could keep him on and pay his benefits was if he could accept a 40% pay cut. Well, that came as a thunderbolt to Ted. Sure, it was good just to have a job in times like these and to have the benefits, but there was no way they were going to be able to pay the mortgage and eat with a 40% pay cut. In a flash, the anticipation, the joy of Advent and Christmas evaporated. To Ted, it seemed just then that God was going away, not coming. He went home sad that evening. His family knew that something was wrong, but Ted couldn't find the words to tell them what had happened. He felt like a failure, and he was depressed. For several days, it went on like this. His wife, Nan, and little Alice and Timmy were sad too. They wondered if it had been something they had done. Ted never told them. As often happens in situations like this, they began to wonder if there was something wrong with who they were. But Ted didn't say. What's wrong with Dad? Alice asked Mom one day after school. Yeah, Dad seems so unhappy, Timmy added. Why won't he talk to us anymore? I don't know, Mom said. He just seems so depressed. Let's pray for Dad. And they did. And as they prayed, Alice said, maybe he just can't find the words to tell us. Well, Mom winced as she thought about all the different things that could be behind Ted's sudden, unexplained reluctance to talk. I have an idea, said Timmy. Let's give him a get-out-of-jail-free card. And so they went and they found their Monopoly set and pulled it out. And then, Mom, you can write him a note and tell him what it means. And Alice said, maybe we can find a Bible passage too. Dad likes God. Well, everyone's mood brightened a bit, and they sprang into action. Mom got a pad and some envelopes. Timmy found the get-out-of-jail-free card, and Alice hauled the family Bible over to the kitchen table. They worked together busily for an hour, cleared off the kitchen table, and left a set of numbered envelopes for their dad to open. They decided to hide. Dad would have to choose to open the envelopes on his own, and he'd probably need some time alone to figure out what to do next. Mom told them that what the signal would be to come out of hiding. Well, Ted came home to a darkened house, turned on the light, and saw the envelopes on the kitchen table. He wasn't sure he wanted to open any of them, but he did, starting with envelope number 1. In it was the get-out-of-jail-free card and a note from Nan. All it said was, "We love you, Ted. Whenever you're ready, please use this card and come back to us. If there's anything to forgive, consider it forgiven. If it's anything we've done, please forgive us. Something's got you in jail. We love you and want to see you set free. Please open the other envelopes too." Well, Ted sank in the chair at the table. He was overwhelmed. His family had given him permission to do what he hadn't been able to give himself permission to do what he didn't think he'd ever be able to do, and to say what he never thought he could have said. A tear formed in his eye as he opened the second envelope and read the note inside, clearly in Timmy's handwriting. "Dad," it said, "you like God. We found this in the Bible. It's from the Proverbs part. Every day is miserable for the depressed. The happy man has a continual feast. Proverbs 15. Love, Timmy and Alice and Mom." Well, through his tears, Ted let out a chuckle. Kids, he thought, they can see right through you. And as he was thinking that, he looked up. The lights had come on in the other room. Everyone had heard the signal, a chuckle from Dad. Nan and the kids came into the kitchen door. "Is it okay to come in now?" Nan asked. "Depends," Ted said. "Only if I can use this card." He held up the get-out-of-jail-free card and wiped his eyes. His family ran into the room and gave him a giant hug. It was messy and noisy in that kitchen for a while, as you might imagine. Ted told everyone what had happened, and they each reflected to each other what it had been like for those terrible few days. "We'll get through this, Ted," Nan told him. "Far worse things could have happened. Let's work through it together as a family." We love you no matter what, Dad," Alice and Timmy said, giving their dad another big hug. Ted said to him, "I feel as if this huge weight has been taken off my back. I couldn't bear the thought of having let you down, and I didn't know how to talk about it. It was like I was wandering on some tortuous winding road that led nowhere. Everywhere I turned, all I could see was another obstacle. Now I truly feel as I've been liberated from prison." Whose idea was the get-out-of-jail-free card anyways? His family laughed and told him to open the third envelope. It was a letter, neatly typed and signed, "Dear Ted," end quote. "Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be made low. The winding road shall be made straight, and the rough ways made smooth, and all flesh shall see the salvation of God. Your family prayed and let me fill in this valley of the depression you serve in. They prayed and let me flatten those mountains and hills for you. They prayed and let me straighten out your path for you. Welcome back home, Ted. This day I've come to you, and once again, you're within the circle of love. We actually never left. You did. In sad, self-imposed exile. In your liberation from that, you've gotten a glimpse of what it means to see the salvation of God. If you happen to think of it when we're together in prayer sometime, maybe you can help me flatten some other people's mountains too. Stay in touch. Your friend, God." Ted grinned at his family and asked, "Did God really write this?" Nan and the children just laughed and looked back at him with love and joy. In that moment, exactly that way, the newly liberated Ted got his answer. There's lots of things that can take joy and hope from our lives. And we need to be reminded at times that, well, that we matter. We matter immensely. And that's part of what's Advent and Christmas is intended to remind us. that we matter even in these days. No matter what we're going through, the difficulties we've been through, and even the ones that lie ahead, there's those who care for us and love us. In particular, God, who sent Jesus to come and be born in a stable, to grow up, to teach about the kingdom, to die on our behalf. But in doing so, lead us to a new life, an anticipation of what is ahead. So we have hope in the mighty God who knows you and loves you and has done all of this so that you can reconnect with him. Let's stand for closing prayer. Well, Father, this morning we do come before you and thank you for this expression of hope, of promises that have been made and were fulfilled. Those 300 prophecies from the Old Testament and how Jesus satisfies them. Lord, we thank you as well for the many prophecies that are yet to come of your second return, of how you will set things to right. And it sure looks like things are not right in this world as we see all kinds of horrible actions that have happened even to this week. And Lord, our hearts go out to those who are enduring loss and pain and glimpses of that which is wrong and evil. And so, Lord, we're longing for freedom from that fear. We're longing for help. We're longing for forgiveness in our own lives for the ways we've failed. And we're longing as well for help in the temptations we continue to face. Help us, Lord, to see you in the midst of all this and to know that you get us, that we are yours and you are ours, and you call us to know you through this work of Jesus. Thank you for your love and your goodness, and we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you this day.